Welcome to 734 Games, and this is Game Time. And this is your host, Tom, coming to you from 734 Games. And today we are playing Remnant from the Ashes. But before we get started with the fun stuff, my nephew is getting cancer treatments. His Gofundme is in the description. Any money given to this channel on Bitchute will go to that. Now let's get started with Remnant from the Ashes. Now playing Remnant from the Ashes by Gunfire Games, published by Perfect World Interactive. And what you have here is, this is an action role-playing game. Now, it's a kind of an indie game. They used the Unreal 4 engine, so the game looks pretty decent, but it's not the most cutting-edge graphics. Even though the graphics are not hard on the eyes whatsoever, the game looks good. And the action and the presentation is pretty decent. I mean, this is my my impressions video. I may do a final thoughts down the line, but this is a pretty cool game. Now, this game is basically a third-person Diablo game in my eyes. I was expecting a little bit more like Left 4 Dead, but to me, it's a lot like Diablo. It feels a lot like Diablo, except that you're in a different, perspective. And basically, you're running around different areas that are kind of like dungeons. They're basically dungeons. They're mainly sewers. Basically, this is a urban action, horror fantasy backdrop, but it's basically a Diablo style dungeon crawler in the third person with guns. So it's a lot of fun, and I think you're gonna like it. The enemies they have different types of enemies you can blow up and do, kind of par for the course for an action game. But this is a fun action game, fun action role-playing game, kind of hack and slash. It's not like a super open world deep RPG. It's more of like a co-op fun action game that you and your friends can play, or you can play by yourself through the different missions and fight just waves and waves of enemies. So I mean, I like the game. I think it's pretty cool. And if you're an action fan, this is definitely a game an action dungeon crawler fan. This is definitely a game you're gonna pick up. Now, still relatively early in the game. I haven't seen, this game is an indie game. It's obviously a labor of love. So I haven't seen a lot. And I've played it for, some odd hours. And I haven't seen any real major glitches or anything like that. Or any real problems with the game. Basically, you have waypoints where you basically go into these stones. And it's kind of like the campfires in Tomb Raider. Where basically those are your save points. So this is an action game, role-playing game, where you level up your character and you find loot, hack and loot, shoot and loot, and you level up your character and you get different gear and you run through dungeons. So this is your basic dungeon crawler action hack and loot. And I mean, they obviously put it in a more modern post-apocalyptic setting, where basically these enemies called the Root have these enemies from another dimension have came to Earth and kind of destroyed everything and destroyed society, and the humans are trying to fight back and reclaim society. And that's what you or by yourself, or you and like 3 other friends can go through these dungeons and do that. And I think what they have here is pretty good. I don't know if they're gonna if the developer is going to move on from this game, or are they going to keep updating it, sort of like Path of Exile. But everything to me said it looks like they're pretty much done with the game. And so far, they actually do have 2 DLCs for this game: Swamp of Corsus and Subject 2932. So they did add some content to this game, but it looks like this is sort of like just a single-player action cooperative game. And I think you're probably going to enjoy it. They kept it simple. They didn't want to go high. A lot of developers these days jump into multiplayer, and the multiplayer is the end all and be all. And if the game isn't solid at the start, then multiplayer is not going to save it. And so, I mean, what you have here is pretty solid. I would say it's a solid indie game. And I can't wait to see what else comes from Gunfire Games. And I can't wait to play the rest of this game. That's pretty much it for this episode of Game Time. This is your host, Tom, signing off from 734 Games, where gaming is alive.